you
the
need like a
next
10
sport.
a 10-meter stick clip. It's like you need like an extended avalanche probe to clip up. And then sometimes you
Yeah.
can't even see the next bolts because that's the whole thing. If the bolt is 8 meters away, you can't even tell where it is because it's hard to see because the rock's all, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
I
that's
think that there are a lot of European multi-pitches like that. This is Climbing Gold. But it seems like you guys have both been on a similar journey from very hard things. Jacopo, in your case, sort of competition climbing and sort of like elite performance, and Babsy with hard bouldering, and then slowly trending to bigger walls, more adventure, more traditional, more expeditions, things like that. I mean, is that sort of fair to characterize?
I think so. For me, like I think the reason why I moved on is just that you know, I always wanted somehow to get out of my comfort zone. So back in the days, my comfort zone was comps, and then I had the feeling that I had to change and do something more adventurous. At the time was like sport climbing for me, and it was like kind of a natural evolution. And yeah, who knows where this will lead. Definitely not soloing El Cap, but maybe.
Oh, you never know. You've done way harder free routes than I have. You're ready. If you could just learn
No.
how to climb in TC Pros, then you'd really be ready.
Maybe that's the point. You have to, if you have to wear them, then I will never do it. No, jokes aside, it's just I think the natural, yeah, evolution. I think in life, I think everyone wants uh, to step out of his or her comfort zone, whatever it is.
I totally agree with you, and that's the same journey that I've been on. With doing bigger things. Like you always want to do something that's new for you, something that's difficult. But I feel like for both of you guys, that's led to the hardest trad climbs in the world, the hardest big walls in the world. Often in the best style. I mean, it's one thing to say that you're trying to push your comfort zone. It's another thing to then extend that all the way to the hardest trad routes that have ever been done. I mean, it's like how, I mean, Babsy especially is like how do you go from wanting to branch out a little bit from bouldering to climbing the hardest trad routes in the world?
Yeah, I just happened. I don't know. For me, in the past, bouldering was the best discipline in climbing. And because of the injury, I started to do different things, different styles in climbing. And this opened a little bit my eyes that there is more about climbing. And then I really loved the challenge, the mental challenge as well, because I had problems to climb this rope at the beginning. I was really scared of falling first in sport climbing, and after it was for me such a big deal to be high up on a wall and be really exposed, and then just focus on climbing. But I really enjoyed at the same time to get better in it and to overcome the inner fear. And this made it more adventurous to me. And I think that was the reason why I wanted to stay with that. And yeah, I found out that for me, it's just I really loved to stay on the wall, to sleep on the wall, and to have the whole package of big wall climbing. It's not only about climbing hard. It's a lot of different things what you have to do on a big
But
wall.
how did you overcome that fear?
I really needed to force myself to fall. So that helped the most to really fall on a big wall. And when I started to climb big walls, I started in Retikon. It's really close to our home. And there I always started ground up. And on my first big wall project, I couldn't do the first pitch. So I went there multiple times. It was still sport climbing, you know. After every
That's
time I came back, it was better. And then I reached the pitch 3, and then I was like, okay, maybe one time I will make it. And then at the end, I could do it. And with this style, uh, I think I grew a lot into that style of climbing.
classic Radicon experience where you go to climb a big wall and you only make it to the first pitch.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, it's all just too scary and too run out.
It's also the runouts were so long that you're between the poles, and you really have to decide fast what you want to try out. And then you fall, and when you fall 5 times, then it can be that you're already tired, and then you don't make it to the next pole, which means that you have to turn around. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
think that's maybe something that's worth you guys explaining further for people listening to this podcast in the US, is the distinction with European sport climbing, particularly the multi-pitch sport climbing, because it's not really like American sport climbing. You know, like a route like Silbergau or the Alpine Trilogy in general, those routes, while they're bolted, they're much more like trad climbing in the US than sport climbing. You know, in that they're super adventurous and they're really can be quite scary. Can you talk a little
I,
bit about that?
I think when you would have a clip stick, it would be not long enough
Yeah,
to
I mean,
reach
yeah, you
the
need like a
next
10
board.
a 10-meter stick clip. It's like you need like an extended avalanche probe to clip up. And then sometimes you can't
Yeah.
even see the next bolts because that's the whole thing. If the bolt is 8 meters away, you can't even tell where it is because it's hard to see because the rock's all, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
I
that's
think that there are a lot of European multi-pitches like that where it's like so sporty, you know, or what Americans call, you know, like run out and exciting, that it doesn't really feel like sport climbing anymore.
Yeah, that's true. But I think it's a really good style because the people who put up the route, they put the poles exactly where it's possible to clip. And this is always
Mm,
good to know when you follow the same style, like the one who put up the route first, then you know that you will have a good position to clip the bolt. This is good for the mind, I think. And also, for me, it helped a lot to take the falls in between and get a little bit further all the time and jump off again and see how it feels. It was just when you're scared, I was scared doing that. So this was for me the best way to get better with my fear.